Good day, everybody, and what is up? Welcome to the podcast for Selfless Sex and She Comes First. My name is Dr. Nick Myers. Today is February the 6th, 2022. Most likely, I will publish this podcast on February the 8th. There's a whole reason for that, but I'm sure you don't want to hear that crap. Thank you so much for all of the support. January was a really big month for me after being away from doing podcasts and things like that for about 6 months or so. And it was a lot of fun, so I do appreciate it. Thank you so much for all the hits and the likes and the shares and the subscribes and all that other good stuff. It really does mean a lot to me. And also, I kind of changed things up just a little bit. I'm going to start doing PSAs, public sexual announcements, just in case if you haven't seen those yet. So if you see the image of me drinking my little cup of coffee at the IHOP, I think that's where that picture was taken. At IHOP, it's just a quick PSA, which is about a 5-minute podcast, just for fun, talking about news or science or something like that. But today, I want to talk about something like a little bit different, something that's more focused on pleasure and how to do it and what is it. Because lately, I've done a lot of sex negative topics, like anorgasmia in men and women. And while those are very important issues just to put out there, they can be kind of like downers. So today I want to focus in on pleasure, and more specifically, analingus, rimming, tossing salad, and what is it, how do you do it, and why I think you should do it. And then at the very end of this podcast, I will give you some tips on how I actually do it. So let's talk about that today. To get this podcast started, I just want to answer one simple question. What is rimming? What is tossing salad? What is analingus? And according to Alicia Sinclair, the CEO of bvibe.com, she says analingus is, quite simply put, oral stimulation of the anus, and it can be enjoyed by people of any gender or sexual orientation. Also known as rimming, it involves stimulation of the anus, such as gently kissing, licking, or even sucking. It is anything that falls under the oral to anal category. So before I really get into how I think you should do it and why and the best positions and all that fun stuff, there are just a few precautions I think that you need to be aware of before you engage in any sort of oral anal activity. And there are 3 major ones. And the first one happens to be sexually transmitted infections. Because yes, you actually can get an STI or STD through analingus. Also, and it can be viral or bacterial. And some of the STIs include herpes, warts, gonorrhea, syphilis, hepatitis A and B. So if you have any concerns, you should use some sort of barrier method like a dental dam, or if you really want to be hands-free, you can use saran wrap, which is a lot wider and it will stick to the person's body, which leaves your hands free to do other things. Number 2 is cleanliness. And at the same time, this may put your mind at ease as well as your partner's mind will be at ease. Because yes, we all know what comes out of the anus, and the area is typically loaded with bacteria. So if the person who's getting the analingus performed to them, if they want to clean up with basic soap and water and a warm towel, just make sure the area is fairly clean or clean period, that should be good enough. There's no need to really get in there and scrub and quote unquote rub yourself raw, because that in the end, that could actually make things worse. But yep, just general soap and water like Dial soap, and you should be good to go. And finally, I like to call this one-way toys, one-way tongue, and one-way fingers. Especially here, when your partner is female, you cannot take a sex toy out of her anus and put it into her vaginal canal. Why? Because as I said a second earlier, the anus is full of bacteria, and some of those bacteria are harmful. So they may hit your ride on that sex toy and end up in her vaginal canal, where she can end up with a severe yeast infection or something worse, to the point where she might actually end up in the hospital. Same thing goes with fingers. You cannot take your fingers out of her anus and put them into her vaginal canal. Same reasoning. Possible yeast infection or something worse. And finally, the same goes with your tongue. You cannot toss her salad. You cannot lick her anus and then go back to licking on her clitoris and licking and sucking on her vaginal opening. Same thing. That bacteria may be on your mouth and you may not realize it. And she may end up in the hospital. Those are 3 things I think you need to be aware of before you engage in oral anal activity. So now I think it's a good idea to bring up the topic of communication and talking about analingus with your partner. And that this may be one of the more interesting conversations you ever have in your life, but you still need to talk about it. Because think about it like this. Either you or your partner may have had a really positive experience with analingus back in the day, and you want to share that with your current partner, which is great. So you may just need to talk about it and introduce it to your partner, talk about it, doing it, how you like it done. Do you want to try it even? And go along that avenue of a conversation. Because you may not want to bring it up during the heat of the moment when you guys are already down and dirty doing your thing. And you're like, hey honey, you don't lick my ass? And they look at you kind of funny, you're like, huh? What? It might catch them off guard and throw the whole mood off. And it's so you can have the conversation pretty much anywhere. Maybe not while you're out at a nice restaurant at dinner, but if that's your thing, go for it. And just to keep it real, I have to say this as well, because there may be circumstances where you are not feeling well. Even though you're all gung-ho for rimming and ready to go, you may not be feeling well. So you may want to reconsider. Just holding off a few days until you feel better. Like, for example, if you go out to dinner or go out to lunch and you have Mexican for dinner, it's full of beans, and you feel kind of gassy, you may want to reconsider. If you're dealing with a bout of diarrhea, you may want to reconsider. If you're constipated, you may want to reconsider. If there is blood in your stool, you may want to reconsider and then go to the doctor to see what is going on. If there's any sort of open sores back there, especially from an STD, you may want to reconsider, go to the doctor and see what is going on and get treatment for those various STDs that are back there. Hey, real talk. Number 6 is digestive issues. Maybe you have just, your stomach has been bubbling all day. You're not really sure what's going on. Even though you're all ready for some butt licking and it's a good rimming, you may want to reconsider just to hold off a few days until things calm down, and then you can get back into it. You see, I'm just trying to keep this honest here because, things can come up, things can come up, things can go away. Your body will change in 24 hours. You don't know what's going to happen. But I didn't say throw it off the table completely, but honestly, you may need to reconsider. All right, everybody, let's get down to it. Let's start talking about some of the more popular positions for rimming. And one of the easier ones is the standing position, where you stand behind your partner, or you kneel behind your partner rather, and they're standing up. So it's kind of like, so your face is pretty much eye level to their derriere, and the anus is right there for your tongue. The next position, which is well known, is when your partner is on a bed and they have a pillow under their pelvis, and that pillow will make their pelvis tilt up a little bit more. So now you can kind of come down on your elbows, and it's there in your face, so you can see everything. Your hands are almost free to touch their legs and their thighs and everything else. But I'm just saying that's a popular position. And my personal favorite is when she is on all fours and you come behind her. I'm saying she because my partners are always female. You can come behind her and she can just be on all fours, and it's right there for your tongue, and you have a good time. But as I said before, just to be honest, one thing I really like to do with my female partners is that Yes, I licked ass before, I can admit it, but then I also like to use a vibrator and put the vibrator on a clitoris. So they're getting clitoral stimulation and also the anal stimulation from my mouth. Then at the same time, depending on which toy I have, some can be inserted into the vagina, which has a little doohickey on the top, which also will provide the clitoral stimulation, also the deep vaginal vibration, and my tongue on their anus. So there's a lot of pleasure going on right there. So you may not want to start with that technique, but you may want to think about it later on as you get better at rimming. All right, everybody, let's get down to it. What do you do with your tongue? Because think about it like this. The entire anus and anal region is full of nerve endings, full of pleasurable nerve endings. So that's why I say if you're going to do this, take your time, do your own reading, do your own research on how to do it. Talk to your partner about if this feels good to them, if it doesn't feel good to them, it kind of sort of does, what can you do to make it better, and just keep it moving. And also, this is one time where I actually can recommend using flavored lubrication. Generally speaking, if you're adding flavor, it may not be a bad idea. Just put that in your pocket. So here, the first technique I want to mention is called the swirl. And you pretty much lick your tongue around the anal opening. Not like you're darting your tongue into it, but just lick gently around the anal opening. Number 2, the up and down, where like you pretty much lick your tongue up and over the anal opening, lick it down, and then lick it left to right. Think of a plus symbol. You're going up, you're going down, you're going left, and you're going to the right. Number 3, I call it half circles. And the best way I can explain it is to think about doing a figure 8 over the anus, where you do 2 circles pretty much on the top of the anus and around the anus. But if you put them together, it looks like a figure 8. It may seem kind of weird, but that's a very popular one. Just dropping a little hint. And the last one I want to mention is quote unquote called the push, where you actually insert your tongue into the anal opening. That may not be for everybody, but some people really do enjoy that sensation of having a warm tongue in their anus. And number 5, this is where you kind of do a combination of everything, where you're doing like the ups and downs and the left and right and the figure 8s and all that good stuff and the swirls, and you're just back there having a good time. Now, this is one time, just from personal experience, I can say that you may end up with a very extremely tired tongue, which is why you start to kiss, you lick around, you use your entire mouth versus just your tongue sometimes, so your tongue will have a break. So just to let you know, those are some of the more popular techniques that are out there, but be sure to talk to your partner about what they like, because they might not like those at all, or they may love them. And more importantly, they may not be into analingus at all, period. And you really can't force them to do it if they're not really into it. Because if you force them, that's something else, and then no one's having a good time at all. Just food for thought, okay? And finally, just a quick word on cleaning up. Because yes, you just had your face and your tongue in someone's anus. And you may need to use some soap or some Listerine just for your own fresh breath. You can brush your teeth, and also depending on how aggressively or how many people were involved in this play, you may need to wash your face or take a shower. And once again, I just recommend some general soap and water, some dial soap, nothing too crazy, nothing too harsh. And also keep in mind too about your sex toys, because if those sex toys are up in someone's anus, they need to be cleaned and sterilized as well. So you can just use some general soap and water, once again, and let them air dry before you put them away. So in closing, I just want to say, yes, this is my quick little podcast on analingus / tossing salad / rimming. And I hope you liked it. And please keep in mind that there are many different ways to pleasure the anus. Not everything leads to anal sex. Not everything needs to include anal sex. And please keep in mind that while you consent to rimming, you do not consent to having anal intercourse, which is a whole different conversation that you guys need to have. So, and that's more about communication than anything I've ever said before in my life. So, on that note, I'm out. I hope you guys really like this podcast. Stay tuned, and I'll talk to you soon.